She accepted a late-night ride, not knowing the passenger was the billionaire who broke her heart. "Why didn't you tell me I had a daughter?" His voice cracked with emotion, tears welling in his eyes as he stared at the photo on her phone. "You walked away, Ethan. You made your choice 5 years ago," she whispered, her fingers trembling on the steering wheel as rain pounded against the windshield, trapping them together in a car that suddenly felt too small for the weight of their shared past. "I never had a choice," he confessed, his polished billionaire facade crumbling. "My father threatened to destroy everything you loved if I stayed." Ladies and gentlemen, what would you do if the person who shattered your heart suddenly reappeared in your life, only to discover they had sacrificed their happiness to protect yours? And what if that reunion revealed a secret that would change both your lives forever? If you've ever wondered whether some loves are destined to find their way back to each other, no matter how many years or heartbreaks stand between them, this story will resonate deep in your soul. I'm Mr. Harrison, and today I'm sharing the remarkable tale of a chance encounter on a stormy night that reunited two hearts broken by circumstances beyond their control. If fate has ever stepped into your life in a way that seemed impossible to ignore, hit that like button right now and join me for a story about second chances, hidden truths, and the kind of love that weathers any storm. Rain pounded against the windshield of Ava Brooks' sedan as she navigated the empty streets of Westlake. The rhythmic sweep of wipers matched her heartbeat, steady, determined, surviving. At 32, her life had settled into a predictable pattern. Days spent as an administrative assistant at a local community college, evenings with her daughter Lila, and nights behind the wheel, ferrying strangers through the darkness to make ends meet. The dashboard clock read 11:47 p.m., almost midnight, and the storm had chased most people indoors hours ago. Ava's shoulders ached from tension, her eyes strained from peering through sheets of water that transformed familiar streets into shimmering rivers. She'd been driving for nearly 6 hours, the extra income essential for covering Lila's upcoming school expenses. "Just a little longer," she murmured to herself, thinking of her 4-year-old daughter sleeping peacefully at home under her grandmother's watchful eye. Lila was the center of Ava's universe, the reason she pushed through exhaustion night after night, the motivation behind every sacrifice. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the rain-slicked roads in stark white light. In that brief flash, Ava caught her own reflection in the rearview mirror. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, the youthful sparkle long faded from her gaze. She barely recognized herself sometimes, this woman who had learned to survive rather than dream. Just as she was about to sign off the app and head home, a notification pinged. A pickup from the Meridian, one of the city's most exclusive hotels. The fare would be substantial, enough to cover Lila's dance class fees for the month. Last ride, she promised herself, making a U-turn toward downtown. The Meridian stood like a glowing beacon against the stormy night, its grand entrance illuminated despite the late hour. Doormen huddled beneath the awning, their uniforms pristine even as rain lashed around them. Ava pulled to the curb, wiping condensation from the inside of her windshield as she waited. Through rain-streaked windows, she watched a tall figure emerge from the lobby. Shoulders hunched against the weather, face obscured by an umbrella, the man exchanged words with the doorman before hurrying toward her car. The back door opened, bringing with it the scent of rain and expensive cologne. "Thank you for coming out in this weather," a deep voice said as the passenger settled into the back seat. Ava's hands froze on the steering wheel. 5 years had passed since she'd heard that voice, but recognition hit her with physical force. Her eyes darted to the rearview mirror, meeting familiar hazel eyes that widened in equal shock. Ethan Carter, the man who had once promised her forever, then disappeared without explanation. "Ava." His voice was barely audible above the rain. She swallowed hard, professionalism battling with the sudden roar of old wounds reopening. "Where to?" she managed, ignoring his question, fingers trembling as she gripped the wheel. Lakeside Towers, please." He leaned forward, his reflection in the mirror showing disbelief and something else, a vulnerability she'd never associated with the confident man she once knew. "Ava, I can't believe it's you. It's a small city." She pulled away from the curb, focusing intently on the road ahead, willing her heart to slow its frantic pace. "I'll have you home in 15 minutes. The silence that followed was suffocating, heavy with unspoken words and shared history. Through the mirror, she could see Ethan studying her profile, his brow furrowed in the way it always did when he was processing something unexpected. "You're driving rideshare at night," he finally said. Not a question but an observation tinged with concern. "It pays the bills." Her tone was clipped, defensive. "Are you?" "I'm fine, Ethan." She cut him off, unwilling to invite his pity. "Life went on after you left." Lightning flashed, illuminating the interior of the car in harsh white light, revealing the fine lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before, the expensive cut of his suit, the weight of success evident in his bearing. The boy who had once shared dreams with her on a weathered park bench had become exactly what his family had groomed him to be: powerful, wealthy, untouchable. The downpour intensified suddenly, sheets of water reducing visibility to mere feet. A flash flood warning blared from her phone as the road ahead disappeared beneath rapidly rising water. "We need to pull over," Ethan said, leaning forward again. "This stretch floods quickly." Ava knew he was right. Already the sedan was struggling through deepening water. She navigated toward higher ground, finding refuge in the parking lot of an abandoned strip mall. As she killed the engine, the full weight of their isolation settled over them, trapped together by the same rain that had accompanied their last goodbye. If you believe some people are meant to find their way back to each other, no matter how many years pass, subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison right now. Sometimes the universe conspires to bring two souls together when they need it most, even if they don't realize it yet. "I can request another driver when the storm passes," Ethan offered quietly. "The app won't connect," Ava replied, holding up her phone to show the searching signal. "We just need to wait it out." Another silence fell, this one filled with the percussion of rain against metal and glass. Ava stared straight ahead, acutely aware of his presence behind her, of the years that stretched between them like an uncrossable chasm. "I looked for you," he said suddenly, "after I came back from London." Ava's laugh was hollow. "You found me easily enough tonight." "That's not," he sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. "I went to your apartment, your old job. Nobody knew where you'd gone. That was the point." She turned in her seat to face him directly for the first time. "You made it very clear we had no future. I needed a fresh start." In the dim light, his expression was a complex mixture of regret and something that looked almost like longing. "I never wanted to end things, Ava. Yet you did. 3 weeks after introducing me to your parents, you suddenly decided we weren't compatible." The bitterness she thought she'd buried years ago rose to the surface. No explanation, no real goodbye. Just a clean break so you could take that position in London without complications. "Is that what you thought?" Ethan's voice dropped, heavy with disbelief. "That I left because of my career? What else was I supposed to think? Your father made it very clear at that dinner that I wasn't the right kind of partner for his heir apparent. 2 days later, you ended things. The timing wasn't exactly subtle." Lightning flashed again, catching the pain that crossed his features. "My father threatened to destroy you, Ava. Not just our relationship, your scholarship, your mother's job at the hospital, everything." Ava stared at him, processing his words. "What are you talking about?" "The Carter Foundation funded your department at the university. My father sat on the board of the hospital where your mother worked. He made it very clear what would happen if I continued seeing the scholarship girl." Ethan's voice cracked slightly. "I was 23, terrified, and stupid enough to believe I had no choice." The rain seemed to fade into background noise as Ava absorbed this revelation. "You never told me. How could I? You would have fought him, and he would have made good on every threat." Ethan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Leaving you was the hardest thing I've ever done. I thought I was protecting you." Ava's mind raced back to that devastating day in her small apartment. Ethan standing by the door, his face a mask of cold detachment as he told her they wanted different things from life. How she had begged for a real explanation. How he had refused to give her one. How she had collapsed to the floor when the door closed behind him. "You broke me," she whispered, the words escaping before she could stop them. "I trusted you with everything I was, and you just walked away. I know. His voice was thick with regret. I've replayed that day in my mind 1,000 times, wondering if there was another way. But he had investigators following us. Ava. He knew about your mother's medical bills, about your scholarship conditions. He would have taken everything from you. So instead, you took yourself. The anger she'd carried for years mingled with a new, uncomfortable understanding. You made that choice for both of us. I was wrong, Ethan admitted, his gaze direct and unflinching. I should have told you the truth, should have trusted that together we could have found another way. But I was young and scared, and I thought sacrifice was the same thing as protection. A notification sound broke the tension, Ava's phone lighting up with a text from her mother. Lila wants to say goodnight. Call when you can. Ethan's eyes caught on the lock screen photo, a smiling 4-year-old girl with hazel eyes identical to his own, dark curls framing a face that was unmistakably a blend of their features. The color drained from his face. Ava, he whispered. Who is that? Her fingers tightened around the phone. This moment had played out in her imagination countless times over the years, but the reality of it, trapped in a car during a storm, had never been part of the script. That's Lila, she said simply. My daughter. Our daughter, he corrected, voice barely audible. She has my mother's eyes. Ava didn't deny it, couldn't deny what was written so clearly in Lila's features. Why didn't you tell me? The question held no accusation, only a devastating sadness. I found out after you left. You were in London, building your empire. Your family had made their opinion of me very clear. She met his gaze steadily. I made the choice I thought was best for everyone. Not for me, Ethan said, his voice breaking. Never for me. The rain began to ease, the torrential downpour softening to a gentle patter against the roof. In the newfound quiet, Ava could hear Ethan's uneven breathing, could see the tremor in his hands as he processed the magnitude of what he'd lost. I have a daughter, he said, wonder and grief mingling in his voice. A daughter I've never met, who doesn't know I exist. She knows about you, Ava admitted quietly. Not everything, but she knows her father loved books and could name every constellation. That he made her mother laugh like no one else could. Tears filled Ethan's eyes. All these years, I've built this life, this company, thinking I was creating something meaningful. But I missed everything that actually mattered. Have you ever discovered a truth that changed everything? Share your story in the comments below. Sometimes life's most important revelations come when we least expect them, forcing us to reevaluate everything we thought we knew. May I see more? Ethan asked hesitantly, gesturing toward her phone. Please. Ava hesitated, then unlocked her phone and opened her photo gallery. She scrolled to a folder labeled Lila and handed it to him. These are from the past year. Ethan took the phone with reverent care, as if it contained the most precious treasure in the world. His fingers trembled slightly as he swiped through images of Lila at the park, blowing out birthday candles, dressed as a butterfly for Halloween, painting at an easel with fierce concentration. She's artistic, he observed softly, pausing on a photo of Lila surrounded by colorful drawings. Very. She can spend hours with her crayons and paper. Ava watched his face as he absorbed each detail. She's also stubborn and curious and talks to strangers in grocery stores, no matter how many times I tell her not to. A small, broken laugh escaped him. Like me, my mother always said I never met a stranger. She has your smile too. And your dimple. Ava pointed to a photo where Lila was grinning widely at the camera. Right there, on the left cheek. Ethan touched the screen gently. What else? Please, tell me everything about her. She loves dinosaurs and can name at least 20 different species. She insists on wearing mismatched socks because life's too short for boring feet. She's afraid of the dark but pretends she isn't. Ava found herself smiling despite the heaviness of the moment. She asks questions about everything. Why is the sky blue? Where do thoughts come from? How do birds know which way is south? She sounds incredible, Ethan whispered, still scrolling through photos, drinking in every pixel of the daughter he never knew existed. She is. Ava's voice softened. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Ethan looked up from the phone, his eyes red-rimmed. Thank you for this. For raising her. For being everything she needed when I wasn't there. I didn't have a choice, Ava said, not unkindly. She needed me. I want to know her, Ava, he said, his voice steadying with resolve. Not as the CEO of Carter Industries or as some distant benefactor. I want to be her father, if you'll let me. It's not that simple, Ethan. I know. He nodded, wiping at his eyes. I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but I'm asking anyway, not for my sake, but for hers. For the chance to love her the way I've never stopped loving you. The admission stunned her into silence. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving behind a world washed clean, glistening under streetlights. You don't love me, Ava finally said. You don't even know me anymore. I know enough, Ethan replied. I know you're still the strongest person I've ever met. I know you've raised our daughter with more love and courage than I can imagine. And I know that seeing you tonight feels like finding a piece of myself I thought was gone forever. Ava turned away, unable to bear the intensity in his gaze. 5 years is a long time, Ethan. We're different people now. I'm not the same person you knew, she continued, staring out at the wet parking lot. And you're certainly not the boy I fell in love with. No, he agreed. We've both changed, but some things remain constant. He reached across the space between them, not quite touching her. I made the wrong choice once, thinking I was protecting you. I won't make that mistake again. The floodwaters had begun to recede, no longer trapping them in place. Ava started the engine, the practical part of her mind insisting they end this conversation before it ventured into territory too dangerous to navigate. I should get you home, she said, her voice carefully neutral. It's late. Ava, please. Ethan's voice held a note of desperation. Don't shut this door before we've even had a chance to open it. At least let me meet her. Let me be part of her life, however you think is appropriate. And what happens when your father finds out? Ava challenged, turning to face him again. When he discovers you have a daughter with the woman he deemed unworthy of the Carter name, will you disappear again to protect us? My father no longer controls my life or my company, Ethan said firmly. I bought out his shares 3 years ago when his health began to fail. He lives in Arizona now, largely retired from public life. This was news to Ava, who had deliberately avoided following the Carter family in the media. Even so, your world and mine are completely different. You live in a penthouse at Lakeside Towers. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment above a laundromat. How would this even work? I don't have all the answers, Ethan admitted, but I'm willing to figure it out if you are. Step by step, on your terms. Ava's phone rang, her mother calling back. She answered quickly. Mom, is everything okay? Everything's fine, dear. Her mother's voice came through the speaker. But Lila woke up and is insisting on saying goodnight to you. You know how she gets. Put her on, please. Ava's voice softened automatically. Mommy. Lila's sleepy voice filled the car. Where are you? I'm still working, sweetheart. The rain made everything take longer. Are you driving careful? The rain is very, very loud on our windows. Very carefully, Ava promised, acutely aware of Ethan listening to every word, his expression a mixture of wonder and heartbreak. Are you being good for Grandma? Aha. I drawed you a picture. It's you and me and the rain and a rainbow. That sounds beautiful. I can't wait to see it. Mommy. Lila's voice dropped to a stage whisper. I asked Grandma about my daddy again. Ava's eyes flicked to Ethan, who had gone completely still. Did you? She said he's far away, but I think he might come back someday. Do you think so? The question hung in the air between them. Ethan's eyes locked with Ava's, silently pleading. I think. Ava took a deep breath. I think sometimes people find their way back to each other when the time is right. Like in my princess book? When the prince comes back. Something like that. Now get some sleep. Okay? I'll be home soon to tuck you in properly. Okay. I love you to the moon and back and around Jupiter twice. I love you to the stars and beyond. Good night, Lila Bean. After hanging up, silence filled the car again. Ethan looked shell-shocked, hearing his daughter's voice for the first time. "She's perfect," he whispered. "She's a child," Ava corrected gently. "A real person with feelings that can be hurt. Not an idea or a dream or a second chance. If you want to be in her life, it has to be for the long haul. No disappearing when things get complicated." "I understand." Ethan's voice was solemn. "I would never hurt her intentionally." "You wouldn't have hurt me intentionally either," Ava pointed out. "But good intentions don't protect people from pain." She put the car in drive and pulled back onto the road, which was now passable though still slick with rain. The familiar route to Lakeside Towers stretched before them, each mile bringing them closer to a parting that now felt impossibly complicated. "What happens now?" Ethan asked as the gleaming high-rise came into view. Ava pulled to a stop in the circular drive, putting the car in park. "Now you go home. And I go home to my daughter." "And tomorrow?" His question hung between them, weighted with possibility. Ava looked at her outstretched hand, at the sincerity in his eyes that had once been her whole world. The future stretched before her, uncertain, complicated, but suddenly full of possibilities she had long ago stopped imagining. "Lila has a dance recital next weekend," she said quietly. "She's playing a raindrop." A smile broke across Ethan's face, transforming him from the polished executive back into glimpses of the man she had once loved. "I'd be honored to be there." Saturday at 2. Westlake Community Center. Ava wrote the address on a receipt and handed it to him. "Don't make me regret this, Ethan." "I won't." He took the paper as if it were made of gold. "Thank you, Ava, for giving me a chance I don't deserve." As he stepped out of the car, he paused, one hand on the door. "For what it's worth, I never stopped thinking about you. Not for a single day." Before she could respond, he closed the door and walked toward the building entrance, his tall figure silhouetted against the gleaming lobby lights. Ava sat motionless for a long moment, her mind replaying everything that had happened in the past hour. The revelation about Ethan's father, the discovery of Lila, the possibility of a future none of them had imagined possible. As she pulled away from Lakeside Towers, she realized that sometimes the path forward wasn't about forgetting the storms of the past, but about finding shelter together in their aftermath. The week that followed passed in a blur of ordinary moments suddenly charged with extraordinary tension. Ava found herself jumping each time her phone buzzed, half expecting, half dreading a message from Ethan canceling their tentative plans. But the only communication came in the form of a simple text the morning after their encounter. "Thank you for last night. I'll see you Saturday at 2. Is there anything Lila might like as a gift from someone attending her performance?" Ava had stared at those words for a long time before responding, "No gifts yet. Let's take this slowly." His reply had been immediate. "Understood. On your terms, always." Now, as Saturday approached, Ava found herself facing a dilemma she'd never anticipated. How to prepare Lila for meeting the father she'd only known through carefully edited stories. "Mommy, does my costume look sparkly enough?" Lila twirled in her blue sequined raindrop outfit, the morning sunlight catching each tiny disc and sending prisms dancing across the apartment walls. "You're the most beautiful raindrop I've ever seen," Ava assured her, adjusting the silver headpiece that completed the ensemble. "Miss Patty says I have to be very serious because rain is important business." Lila attempted a solemn expression that dissolved into giggles almost immediately. "But I think raindrops probably have fun when they're falling." "I think you're right." Ava knelt to her daughter's level, suddenly overwhelmed by the moment. This child, with her boundless imagination and Ethan's dimpled smile, had been her entire world for 4 years. How would that world change after today? "Lila, sweetheart, I need to tell you something important about the recital. Is Grandma not coming?" Lila's face fell immediately. "No, Grandma will definitely be there. But someone else is coming too. Someone special who wants very much to meet you." Lila's eyes widened with curiosity. "Who? Is it Santa? Because it's not Christmas yet, but I've been very good." Ava laughed despite her nerves. "Not Santa. It's your father, Lila." The little girl went completely still, her sequins no longer catching the light. My daddy? The real one from your stories? Yes, sweetheart, the real one. But you said he was far away. He was. For a long time. But now he's back, and he wants to meet you. Lila's expression cycled through confusion, wonder, and uncertainty in rapid succession. Does he know I'm a raindrop today? He does. And he's very excited to see you perform. Will he stay? After the show? The question was so simple, yet it contained all the complexity of their situation. For a little while, Ava said carefully, we'll all talk after your performance. Is he nice? Like in your stories? Ava hesitated, memories of Ethan's kindness mingling with the pain of his abandonment. Yes, he's nice. And he wants very much to know you. Lila considered this with the serious contemplation only a 4-year-old could muster. Okay, she finally declared. But I'm still sitting with you and Grandma. Of course you are, Ava promised, pulling her daughter into a tight hug, breathing in the scent of baby shampoo and the faint sweetness that was uniquely Lila. Always. The community center auditorium buzzed with excitement as parents, grandparents, and siblings found their seats for the annual spring recital. Ava and her mother, Eleanor, arrived early to deliver Lila to the backstage area where her dance teacher was corralling 20 preschoolers into a semblance of order. Are you sure about this? Eleanor whispered as they claimed seats in the 3rd row. Meeting him here, with all these people around? It seemed safer somehow, Ava admitted. Public, structured, with Lila's performance as the focus instead of everything else. Eleanor squeezed her daughter's hand. You're a good mother, Ava. Whatever happens today, remember that.
The seats around them filled quickly with chattering families. Ava checked her watch repeatedly as 2 o'clock approached with no sign of Ethan. Had he changed his mind? Had something come up? Or had this all been a momentary impulse, forgotten in the light of day? Just as the lights began to dim, a tall figure slipped into the aisle. Ethan, dressed in casual slacks and a blue button-down that matched Lila's costume, scanned the crowd until his eyes found Ava. He moved toward them, nodding apologetically to those he passed. I'm so sorry, he whispered, taking the empty seat beside Ava. Traffic was a nightmare. Did I miss anything? They're just starting, Ava replied, acutely aware of her mother's scrutinizing gaze from her other side. Ethan, this is my mother, Eleanor. Mom, this is Ethan Carter. Eleanor's expression remained carefully neutral as she nodded in acknowledgement. Mr. Carter, Mrs. Brooks, it's good to finally meet you. Ethan's sincerity was evident, even in the dimming light. Thank you for everything you've done for Lila and for Ava. Before Eleanor could respond, the music began, and a line of tiny butterflies fluttered onto the stage, followed by a procession of flowers, bees, and finally, raindrops. Ava immediately spotted Lila in the center of the raindrop formation, her face a mask of concentration as she followed the simple choreography. Beside her, Ethan leaned forward slightly, his entire focus on the small figure in blue sequins. Ava could feel the tension in his body, the effort it took not to react too visibly to seeing his daughter perform for the first time. When Lila executed a perfect twirl, the move she'd practiced for weeks in their living room, Ethan's hand found Ava's in the darkness, squeezing gently in shared pride. The simple gesture, so natural and yet so loaded with history, sent warmth spreading through her chest. For 15 magical minutes, they were simply parents watching their child shine. No complicated past, no uncertain future, just the pure joy of Lila's performance binding them together in the present moment. As the final notes faded and the audience erupted in applause, Ethan released Ava's hand to join in the standing ovation. His eyes glistened in the stage lights, emotion written plainly across his features. She's amazing, he whispered, voice thick with pride. Absolutely amazing. The lobby bustled with excited children and proud parents after the show. Ava stood with Eleanor, scanning the crowd for Lila, who was being released by her teacher along with the other performers. There she is, Eleanor pointed toward a side door where Lila was emerging, still in her costume, clutching a small bouquet given to all the dancers. Mommy, Grandma! Lila spotted them and raced over, sequins flashing with each step. Did you see me twirl? Miss Patty said I was the twirliest raindrop ever. You were spectacular, Ava assured her, kneeling for a hug, the star of the show. As she embraced her daughter, Ava felt Lila suddenly go still, her attention focused over Ava's shoulder. Turning, she saw Ethan standing a respectful distance away, uncertainty and hope warring in his expression. Is that him? Lila whispered loudly. Is that my daddy? Ava nodded, rising to her feet and taking Lila's hand. Yes, sweetheart. Would you like to meet him? Lila nodded solemnly, suddenly shy in a way she rarely was. Together they approached Ethan, who seemed to be holding his breath. Lila, this is your father, Ethan Carter. Ethan, this is Lila Brooks. Ethan knelt down to Lila's level, his movements careful, as if approaching a wild deer that might startle and flee. Hello, Lila. You were an incredible raindrop today. I especially liked your twirl. Lila studied him with the frank curiosity of childhood. You have eyes like mine, she observed. Yes, Ethan agreed, his voice gentle. I was just thinking the same thing about you. Mommy says you know all the stars in the sky. Not all of them, Ethan smiled. But I know quite a few. Maybe someday I could show you some of my favorites. Lila considered this offer seriously. Do you know the Big Dipper? That's the only one I know. I do. And the Little Dipper and Orion and Cassiopeia, which looks like a big W in the sky. A W like my name starts with L? Lila demonstrated the letter with her fingers. Exactly like that. Ethan's smile grew, his initial nervousness easing as Lila's natural curiosity overcame her shyness. Why didn't you visit me before? The question, delivered with a child's directness, landed like a physical blow. Ava saw Ethan flinch slightly, but he maintained his composure. I was very far away, he said carefully, and I didn't know how wonderful you are. If I had known, I would have come much sooner. Lila seemed to accept this explanation. Are you staying now? Ethan glanced up at Ava, silently deferring to her. I would like to visit you sometimes, if that's okay with you and your mom. For stories and stars? For stories and stars and whatever else you'd like to share with me. Lila turned to Ava. Can he come for dinner? I want to show him my dinosaurs. The simple request, delivered with such innocent hope, melted something in Ava's heart. Not tonight, sweetheart, but maybe next weekend. Ethan's expression brightened with cautious hope. I'd like that very much. Me too, Lila declared, then added with the non-sequitur logic of childhood. I'm hungry now. Can we get ice cream? Eleanor, who had been watching the interaction silently, stepped forward. Why don't I take Lila for ice cream while you two talk? We'll meet you at the car in 20 minutes. Ava nodded gratefully. Thanks, Mom. As Eleanor led Lila away, the little girl turned back to wave at Ethan. Bye, Daddy. See you for dinosaurs. The title, spoken so naturally, so easily, left Ethan momentarily speechless. He raised his hand in a stunned wave, watching until they disappeared into the crowd. She's incredible, he finally said, turning back to Ava. So bright, so open. You've done an amazing job with her.
She makes it easy, Ava replied. Most days anyway. They moved to a quieter corner of the lobby as the crowd began to disperse. Thank you for this, Ethan said earnestly. For letting me be here today. For introducing me to her. She deserves to know you, Ava said simply. And you deserve to know her. What about us? Ethan asked quietly. Where do we go from here? I don't know, Ava admitted. This is uncharted territory for all of us. I meant what I said in the car, Ava. I never stopped loving you. But I understand if that's not something you can hear right now or ever. Ava studied the man before her. The familiar features now matured, the confidence tempered with humility, the eyes that still looked at her as if she were the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. I can't promise anything, she cautioned. 5 years is a long time, and Lila has to be my priority. She's mine too now, Ethan assured her. I'm not asking for promises. Just a chance to make things right. Not with wealth or position, but with the only thing that ever really mattered between us. And what's that? She asked, echoing their conversation from the car. Love, he said simply. The kind that weathers any storm. 1 year later, Ava stood in the garden of a small country house just outside the city, watching as Ethan chased Lila through sprinklers that caught the late afternoon sunlight, transforming ordinary water into cascades of diamonds. Their laughter mingled in the warm air, the sound of joy she had once thought impossible. The path to this moment had not been easy. There had been difficult conversations with Lila, tense family dinners with Eleanor, and the slow, careful rebuilding of trust between Ava and Ethan. There had been moments of doubt, of fear, of old wounds reopening when least expected. But there had also been healing. Ethan had proven himself not with grand gestures or expensive gifts, but with consistency, patience, and unwavering commitment to both Ava and Lila. He had shown up for school events and doctor's appointments, for nightmares and skinned knees, for all the ordinary moments that built a family. And somewhere along the way, in the midst of bedtime stories and Sunday breakfasts, of honest conversations that stretched late into the night, Ava had found herself falling in love again, not with the memory of who Ethan had been, but with the man he had become. Mommy, come play, Lila called, her sundress soaked, her curls plastered to her forehead. Daddy says we're making our own rainstorm. Ava laughed, kicking off her sandals to join them in the cool grass. As Ethan caught her hand, pulling her into their improvised dance through the water, she felt the last pieces of her guarded heart finally surrender. Later, as the sun began to set and Lila dozed on a porch swing, Ethan took Ava's hand, leading her to the garden's edge where wildflowers nodded in the evening breeze. I have something to ask you, he said, his expression suddenly serious. Something I've wanted to ask since the moment I saw you again in that car. Before she could respond, he knelt before her, not with a diamond ring or grand speech, but with a simple question. Ava Brooks, will you build a life with me? Not the one we might have had, but something new, something stronger for having been broken and mended. Tears filled her eyes as she nodded, pulling him to his feet. Yes, she whispered against his lips. Yes to all of it. As they sealed their promise with a kiss, the sprinklers came on again, showering them in unexpected rain. They broke apart laughing, soaked and joyful in the fading light. You were my heartbreak once, Ava said, echoing words she'd written in her journal during those darkest days after he'd left. Now you're my home. If this story touched your heart, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear that second chances are possible. Life rarely unfolds as we expect, friends. Sometimes the greatest storms lead us to unexpected shelter, and the deepest wounds become the spaces where the most beautiful healing can occur. I'm Mr. Harrison, reminding you that true love doesn't guarantee a perfect journey, but it does promise that no matter how far apart you drift, when it's real, the way back to each other is never truly lost.